In the previous video, we looked how to create a fixed layout with two columns. Now I'm going to show you how to create a two-column website with a fluid layout. So basically a layout that is going to adapt to the side of the screen. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing that we want to do is, as we did in the previous video, is we're going to set the width to the body element. And in this case, if you can see, I'm setting the width element of the body, or the width attribute of the body element, to 90%. That means that the body, regardless the size of the screen, is going to use 90% of the available space. So that's important to know. Okay, so then the second one is going to be, I'm just going to do a background color again, so I can see what's going on. So a background white, and then we're going to create some margin around. So it's going to be 15 pixels. And if I do again, I do auto, the main, or in this case, the body element gets centered to the screen. And at this point, as you can see, regardless the size of the screen, it used 90% of this available space. Okay, let's keep going. So then we have here, we are going to do the main element. So the main element here is going to have a width of 66%, right? And is going to have a height again of 350 pixels. Now, remember that it's hard to really to use height with percentages because we don't really ever know the size of the or how much space in regarding height the elements are going to use. So for this purpose, we are just putting pixels, but most of the time I personally don't recommend to put the height of an element unless you know exactly what kind of look you're looking for. That's why we're just putting the height here, okay? Just for the purpose of this particular example. We're going to create a border right. And this border right is going to be 2 pixels, and it's going to be a solid, and it's going to be a color of EF9C00. That it's that kind of orange color. And I'm just going to take this rule here and I'm going to apply it to the border bottom before I forget, so I can create that bar on the like at the bottom of the header element. So that's the only thing that I need there. The most important thing here, coming back to the main element, is again, we're gonna float the element. So we're gonna float it to the left. And again, the same thing happens, right? Aside and footer, try to use basically the available space next to main, because basically we're telling any other element, please go to the right, because I'm just floating myself to the left, but I'm just using 66% of the space available. Okay. Now, this aside element here, we're gonna set it to 33%, and we are going to float it to the right. And that's kind of weird. Like, you know, like we floated first the main to the left, and now we are assigning to the right. But in the previous video, we float both elements to the left. This is another way to do it. You can float all the elements to the left if you want, as far as they are in order. So for example, if I float this to the left, I should have the same result, right? So I'm just going to keep it there for now. I'm going to come here and just basically clear both and take this border right rule here for my footer. Instead of right, I'm just going to do top. And now I have this. So this is where I want to spend a couple of minutes now that I finished this and you can see it. Look at this. I float the element main to the left. I can float the side to the left, and that's okay. Now, I can float it to the right, and it's also right, or it's also correct. What is the difference here? I can float elements to the left or keep floating them to the left as far as they are next to each other. Okay, so basically main element comes first and a side comes second. If I take the side element, cut it out of here and put it before the main, and I float it to the left, that's what happens. A side comes first because I'm floating it first. And then main comes second because it comes second. You see what I mean? But if I want my aside to be on the right and my main to the left, even though they are not coming basically main first and aside second, I can do just float to the right and my main is on the right, on the left, and my aside it's on the right. Just keep that in mind. You can also do that. Now, if I start, I forgot to add a border here. So I'm gonna do a border 1 pixel solid black so you can see it better. Now, look at this. It used basically 90% of the body element. Now, sometimes this is good. Sometimes this is not good. Like sometimes you want the body element to stop growing at certain point. You can also do that. And this part is not in the book, so I'm just going to show real quick. We can actually, if we use what we learned last week about max width, I can do max width and I can do 962 pixels. And what's going to happen is my body element is going to use 90% of the space available on the window, but when it hits 962, it's going to stop growing. And again, can do that. And I can actually then say to my body element, I can do a minimal width, and I can say, you know what? When you hit 300 pixels, stop getting smaller. So I can do this, this, and this, and it hit 300 and it's not doing it anymore. Maybe I'm gonna do 400 just to see the effect on it. So save. And that's it. So now you have basically a body element or a liquid layout that stops growing at 962. Is it necessary? No, sometimes it's not necessary, but sometimes you really want to do that. So just delete that. And again, that's how it should work.